Happy Friday evening, my YouTube family. Remember to like, share, comment. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce you to this book, and the topic is God Still Lives. And this is the author and his wife. It's a interesting story, very interesting, of what God has done for them. And when we learn to have faith in God and to believe in Him, and trust that He will come true for us. So this book was given to me by Sister Dawkins, Jamaica K Lifestyle, and I have it here a good while now and didn't open it to read, because guys, I used to love read a lot of books I love to read first time, but since I'm up in age, I hardly take up books and read under the Bible, I like my quarterly. So eventually she sent a book like this for my daughter and a Bible, and my granddaughter took it and read off this book. She spent the whole evening on it. It came in the evening and spent the whole evening and almost the whole night reading this book, and she didn't stop until it is finished. And she was telling me that it's a very interesting book. So I said, okay, I'm gonna try my best to adjust myself back to reading, because I give up on reading to sit and read. That was in my younger days. So after taking up this book yesterday and read the first chapter, wow, so interesting, so inspiring, guys. So don't be bored when I read this book to you. Just please listen and see how God can really come true for us. So this is chapter 1, the skeleton key. That's it. Call to me and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things which you do not know. Jeremiah 33 verse 3. So you will hear music in the background. It's not my music, it's my daughter over her side playing gospel. Exhausted from many days of training leaders to disciples, parents, and their children to Jesus, I asked my Zimbabwe house where I was supposed to spend the night. I had just preached that night to over 700 students on a high school campus in Zimbabwe, and it was already well past sunset. My host led me to a dormitory on the edge of a university campus nearby, and not far from a high fence which was meant to keep the leopards out. Once we got to my room, they handed me a long, narrow skeleton key. I stuck the key in the lock and the door popped open. With gratitude, I said good night to my host. After preparing the bed, I knelt by my bed to pray. God, I am leaving for home the day after tomorrow. What is on your heart? Hesitantly, the quiet voice of God whispered softly to my heart and mind, come out under the stars, Dan. There's something I want to tell you. Hopping up, I put on some warmer clothes and locked up my hiking shoes. Grabbing the key, I stepped out of my room, locked the door, and walked out into the night. I headed down a dirt path and then knelt in some tall grass, looking up at the sky. I gazed with awe at the stars, which not difficult light from many miles. The sky was brilliant and twinkling galaxy. It was simple, heartbreaking. I have to make them turn on that music. God, I am here, I greeted him. What is on your heart? What do you want to tell me? Again, he spoke immediately to the heart and mind. Asked me to do much more for Africa. Asked me to do much more for Africa. Now I felt that This was a strange thing for God to tell me. Why did he want me to ask him to do much more for Africa? He could answer his own prayer by doing anything he wanted to the continent. However, I knew it was his voice speaking, and he was clear in what he wanted me to do. In obedience, I stretched out my hands in the darkness to God and prayed out loud, God, please do much more for Africa. My short prayer was spoken in faith. I waited. Would God have anything else to say? The only sound was a soft breeze blowing through the tall grass. I heard nothing more, but this peace was with me. Standing to my feet, I turned and walked back to the dormitory. Eagerly, I pulled out the skeleton key as I near my room. I was ready to sleep, very ready to sleep. I stuck the key into the lock and turned it. The door would not open. I tried it again. It still wouldn't open. I tried it again 5 times, 10 times, 15 times. The door simply wouldn't open. How could this be happening to me? I grumbled to myself. The key just worked a few minutes ago. Why isn't it working now? Immediately, the still small voice of God told me, you are not getting into your room because there is someone you are supposed to meet. Lord, I don't know anyone here in this dormitory. Besides, the lights are out, so that means everyone is asleep. But God has spoken. There was someone I suppose you to meet. Not sure where to go, I started walking down the long, dark hallway. This is crazy, I muttered again to myself. No one is awake. Lord, show me, who am I supposed to meet? I walked past room after room. Every door was closed. Every light was out. Peeping through darkness, I saw one door, the only door in the long hallway, with light streaming out from under it. I timidly tapped on the door. The door swung open, and a man stuck his face out into the dark hallway. Seeing my white face staring back at him, he stepped back slightly, startled. Who are you? He challenged me. Quickly, I told him that there was no reason to be afraid. Then I introduced myself and told him briefly about the discipling work I have been doing for leaders here in Zimbabwe. I am Pastor Willard from North Zambia. How can I help you? He asked warmly. I held up my key. I am embarrassed to tell you, but I cannot open my room door with the key. It works before. I am not sure what to do or who to ask for help. No problem, he explained. I have been coming here each summer to work on my master's degree, and I've stayed in many rooms in this dormitory. Lead me to your room and I will open it for you. As we got near my room, I handed him the key. He confidently slipped the key into the lock and turned the key. And guess what happened? Nothing. He tried again and again, but the key would not open the door. Baffled, Pastor Willard went and found the night watchman on duty, a strong man who towered over me in height and looked like he could have been a wrestler. However, His face was friendly as he gave me a joyful smile. Please give me the key, sir. I can open any door here for you. I was delighted to hear this and handed him the key. He tried to open the door, but it would not budge. He then turned the key with all his might. He pushed and shoved and strained, and a strain of sweat began trickling down his face. I wondered if the key would break. Still, the key would not work. Don't worry, I will get the men's dean to help us. The young night watchman promised in a few. Don't worry, I will get the men deans to help us. The young night watchman promised in a few minutes. The dean came with a basket full of keys, including many duplicates for my room. We will have you in your room in no time, the dean told me. He took a copy of my key and popped it in the lock and turned it. It would not budge. Every duplicate key to my room would not open the door. Why is this happening to me? I silently complained. God's voice spake to my heart in response. Ask Pastor Willard, what do you need? Or may I help you? No, Lord, I reasoned. I only have $100 in my wallet for emergency money. What if this pastor from Zambia asks me to help him pay the tuition for one of his children? I don't have that much. What if he asks me to help pay for tuition of all his children? What would I do? But God was not impressed with my arguments. As I hesitated, God prompted me again to ask Pastor Willard the questions. I thought of possibilities as I fingered my wallet in my pocket. I was genuinely afraid that Pastor Willard would ask me for something beyond what I had in my heart. I did not ask the question, but watched as the dean continued struggling to open my door. God prompted me the third time with urgency. I sighed. Pastor Willard, I finally spoke up. God is expressing me to ask you, what do you need? How may I help you? Pastor Willard's face exploded into a big smile. His smile was much too big for my comfort. That is exactly why I didn't want to ask him. God, I cried inwardly, but my mind was jotted back to the moment as Pastor Willard was already speaking in response. That is a wonderful question, he told me. Exhaustively, he then bent over, asked the dean, who was still looking for a working key for my door. Would you please give me Dan's original key? The dean straightened up, looked at Pastor Willard with a puzzled expression, shrugged his shoulder, and handed him the key. Pastor Willard took the key, stuck it in the lock, turned it, and the door opened. We all stood silently around the open door for a moment, staring in awe. God is good. After thanking the dean and the night watchman for their valiant effort, I invited Pastor Willard into my room. God obviously wanted me to meet you, but before you tell me anything, we need to pray. We knelt down together and I prayed first. Please, Lord, help Pastor Willard to tell me only what you want him to share as the need. Pastor Willard then prayed, Lord, please help Pastor Don to hear what you want him to hear. We got up and looked at Pastor Willard with expectation. So what do you need? He followed my question with his own question. Well, what do you do? I offer training to help parents and mentor disciples their children to Jesus Christ, I told him. Wonderful, he responded. Why don't you come North Zambia and train us? Instantly I felt relief. I thought to myself, he is asking me to do something I know how to do. I can do this. I smiled, but immediately God spoke to my heart again. Don, offering them the training is good, but ask him what he really needs now. Pastor Willard, God is impressing me to ask you, what do you really need? Pastor Willard paused briefly with his head bowed. Then he looked up with tears in his eyes. We need 2 schools in North Zambia. Oh, I spoke nervously. You mean like a 1-room school? I was trying desperately to keep the request small enough that I might be able to consider it. Oh no, Pastor Dan, we need a full secondary school campus that is a boarding school for hundreds and hundreds of students. Now I began to squiver inwardly. Actually, he continued, we need 2 secondary school campuses complete with boys and girls, dormitories, classrooms, kitchen, toilets, showers. He went on listing the needs of both campuses. By now, I was completely stressed and overwhelmed. Well, thank you for sharing this with me, I said weakly and little enthusiasm. I will pray about what you have shared. I promised. We stood up, shook hands, said good night, and parted. I knelt and I prayed at my bedside once more. God spoke. This is the man I wanted you to meet, and that request was from me. Crawling into bed, I pulled the cover up across my chest as I tried to sleep. How was I ever going to build 2 secondary school campus in Zambia? I wondered to myself as I drift off to sleep. Right, so that's the end of chapter 1. It take me 18 minutes and 30 seconds to finish reading chapter 1. So this is a true story, a very interesting story. That this is the author and his wife. So this is a true story. God still lives. So Pastor Dan, God spoke to him that he needed 2 secondary school in Zambia. Pastor Dan went on the campus and was tired, wanted to sleep, but God wanted him to go and meet Pastor Willard. So when he went into his room ready to sleep, God spoke to him, saying, must go outside. And he went outside in faith and went in the high grass and was there staring in the sky and wondering what God want now. And what do you want? He asked God, and God tell him in his mind what he was to do. So he went now to go back to his room to open his door to go and sleep. But eventually the key couldn't work. The key would never open the door. So he was puzzling and wondering why he tried so many times and the key couldn't open the door, because God said he should go and meet someone. But he was new on campus, didn't know anyone, and all lights was out. So I was wondering, who could he go and meet now with everyone light is out and they gone to bed? That is impossible. But what is impossible with us is possible with God. So God determined that he's not going to let that door open. So I have to walk down the corridor and walk room after room after room until he saw a light in one of the rooms. And he knocked on the door, and Pastor Willard came and peeped and saw the white face and jumped back, was frightened. He said, "Don't be afraid," and identify himself. And yeah, they both talk, and he didn't want to tell Pastor Willard what God tell him to ask him. So he tell him that he cannot open his door. So Pastor Willard went with Pastor Dan, tried the key, the door wouldn't open. They tried so much time, it don't open. He went for the night watchman. He came, he too couldn't open the door. All what they were doing, the door would not open for Pastor Dan to go and get his rest. So the dean went the night watchman went to call the dean, and when the dean came, he came with duplicate key, that other keys that can open the door, and he tried them over and over, and they couldn't budge. They wouldn't open the door, and they were wondering what is really happening. It was just like Noah and the whale when he was to go and warn the people at Nineveh, and he didn't want to go, and he was there, and the ship couldn't go because the wave was brought, and they have to throw him overboard. God, he was the one, and the whale can't take him in. So when God wants us to do something and we incline not doing it, God have his punishment for us. So when the dean tried, he couldn't open the door. So God said to Pastor Dan, ask Pastor Willard, what do you want you to do? Ask Pastor Willard what he want you to do. So he was still there, full of himself, didn't want to ask until he said, "Lord, I want to sleep. What can I?" And he said, "Ask Pastor Willard." So he opened his mouth and he said, "Pastor, the Lord has impressed on my heart to ask you, what do you want me to do for you?" And Pastor Willard laughed and said, "Yes, and I also want to ask you, what do you want me to do for you?" And that was, so the argument started. And after asking that question, Pastor Willard says to the deans, "Please give me the original key for Pastor Dan lock." And the deans gave the key to Pastor Willard. And as Pastor Willard took the key from him, put the key in the door, it opened. You see that, guys? You see, you might say it's a boring story, but it happened for real. It's a true story that I read from this book. This experience that Pastor Dan went through, and Pastor Sinclair. And after he asked what God said he should ask, the door, God allowed the door to open and they could go inside. Everybody was puzzled because they were all trying and it couldn't open. But the moment that Pastor Dan asked Pastor Willard for the question that God wanted him to ask, the door could open for them to go in and pray and discuss what God wanted both of them to do for each other. Okay? And in chapter 2 now, I'll continue this book with you, my YouTube family. Please show some support by commenting, liking, and let me get your feedback. Has God been there for you? Have God ever put you through a test like this and you was reluctant to do it, and God, you want to do something, but God will allow you to do it until you do what he wanted you to do? Let me know in the comment section. All right, God come through for us at all times, and sometimes God wanted us to do things and we are timid, we are afraid, we are embarrassed, and we feel like, no, we can't do it. I can't ask this man anything, I can't ask this lady anything. And God is saying, ask, and hear what he wanted to do, or hear what she wanted to do, and tell them what you want them to do. You understand? So when we obey God, he will come true for us. Yes, so it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Everyone who could get a copy of this book, God Still Lives. Very interesting, very, very interesting book, my YouTube family. So as you listen to this true story, just reflect on things that God is impressing on your heart to ask someone, to ask next door neighbor to ask a young person, to ask a elderly person, what do you want me to do for you? Right? To God be the glory, great things I have done. Happy Friday. Happy Sabbath to you, my YouTube family. Love and blessing to you all. Peace out. Bev Brown said that. Love you guys.